Hello and welcome, I'm Tafarag Adamu. While the second wave of COVID-19 is projected to hit many countries in the north and also in the east, here in Ethiopia, its exponential advance, if any, is yet to be seen. Months after the first case was reported, we only have 5 deaths. Well, 1 dead is one too many, yet there is some good news in there. Prof.Yifru Berhan, formerly the Minister of Health and now a consultant and researcher at the St. Paul's Hospital Millennium Medical College, joins me to explore the state of COVID-19 here in Ethiopia. A very warm welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me in your program as well.
I've seen a couple of the articles that you've published, you have authored on COVID and its coverage, in COVID-19 and its coverage in Ethiopia and the implications. I'd be interested to have a discussion on particularly the subject. But for a start, let's explore where we stand today. And only 3 months on, we have only 5 people dead because of this virus. And the figure is not increasing exponentially. What does this tell you?
All right. Probably this virus has a preference in the environment, and probably in this country and some other countries in Africa, the job is done well as compared to other parts of the world, particularly in temperate zone, where we can see high prevalence and high incidence of COVID-19. And is it really what the government is undertaking, and people accepted the orders given from the government? What makes a big difference in terms of the disease load, case load, and as well as the severity and the mortality, we don't know. We need to study. But from what we observed so far, as you rightly said, the number of cases and casualties are very few. And this is against with what has been already projected. And it was expected to have an exponential type of spread here in Africa. Probably the worst affected to be was considered to be an Africans, and this is not the case so far. I think there are factors that have helped us not to have this number of cases in Africa and Ethiopia in particular.
What are these factors, you think? I mean, weather is one.
Yes. And under the weather, we can talk about the humidity. Here in Africa and in Ethiopia, this time it's somehow hot weather and humid. And exposure, sunlight exposure is also is not for many of the African countries. This time is summer, therefore that may have helped us that might have helped us not to have large number of cases. And another one is altitude. Many parts of Africa somehow have high altitude where people are living, and this may have a historical background as well. As you know, Africa is highly affected by malaria, yellow fever, and like insect-borne diseases in general. So people usually prefer to live in highland areas as compared to other parts of the world, like the Europe, America, and many parts of the Latin America are living around the coast and in the lowland areas. So this virus probably prefers to spread and multiply in lowland areas or in low altitude and far latitude areas as compared to Africa.
But as we approach the rainy season, the big rains as we call them here in Ethiopia, you think the figure will skyrocket possibly? Will the infections continue to be?
Will not be skyrocketing. Definitely it may increase as far as there are case carriers who are not treated or who are not vaccinated. The chance of spread when the environment is favorable for this virus is very likely. In particular, the coming rainy season and now spring, that is starting from September up to December, we expect to have probably a bit larger cases, but not be exponential or skyrocketing.
So you don't think there would be a super spreader?
I don't think so. We'll have that kind of case loads in the coming months as well. If we are vulnerable for that kind of spread, we could have it before. Even up to now, 2 months completed here in Ethiopia and 3 months in many parts of the African countries since the first case was detected. This is enough time. As we learned from other parts of the world, particularly in Europe and America, it spread exponentially in less than 2 months period. And this time, even it is getting lower. But in Africa, we have enough cases to have that kind of a spread. I don't think so. It's the few cases that we have. What really matters, not to have exponential type of a spread.
Could this perhaps be because of the nature of the virus, that it possibly evolves differently than the way it did in the Northern Hemisphere?
It's good also to explore the history. Coronavirus is not new, at least in the family.
This strain is new, this strain.
What is new is the fast spread, and there are some special characteristics of this virus. One is pre-symptomatic viral shedding, meaning the virus can multiply and can transmit from one person to another person before the index case is symptomatic. This is one special character.
Before we know that somebody is sick.
Infected, exactly. Before he's diseased. That's what we mean. Before he's diseased, and the virus can shed. Shedding means multiplying, and then the individual can spread to many people. This is probably what contributes to the exponential type of spread across Europe and Asia and America. When you see the history of other coronaviruses like the MERS, the SARS, and the SARS, and OC43, and some others, it's primarily they are diseases of the temperate zone. Only few cases are reported from other parts of the world. So probably this virus needs an environment which is cold and low altitude, that which is true in Europe and others. So
also in the parts of the Middle East where you have MERS.
Exactly. So I think that may be the case as well for the COVID-19. So far, we have seen cases in any part of the world, but not as predominantly as it is in North America, Asia, and Europe. So we can learn from the 3 months experience to judge. Probably this is not the case as well in Africa.
So where does the projection come from, i.e. the 28 million Ethiopians that were predicted to be infected? Where does that come from?
I think the assumption is 28 million is a lost, by the way, the lost estimate with interventions, with good mitigation and containment intervention. That's the lost estimate. The highest estimate for Ethiopia was actually 107 million of 114 million of Ethiopian people.
How was that calculated?
Probably they take into consideration a similar type of spread across the globe. And this cannot happen because like the microorganisms, the microorganisms have their own behavior and they have their own preference. And there are multiple factors that should have been taken into consideration. So by any standard, I don't think so. 28 million of Ethiopian people will get infected, even after a year from its onset. That's my personal assumption.
Has the virus assumed a totally different characteristic when it comes to the Ethiopian case, do you think? Because, well, you know that this virus is different from the ones that we had in the past, right? The coronavirus. But we had a series of, we had influenza here. We have this gumfans, not the common cold type, but a little bit much more, challenging that we can, and all that stuff.
Yeah, I got you. Well, having an exposure to other viruses in similar at least, if not in the family or the class, and having an exposure to many viruses here in Africa, including Ethiopia, might have a cross type of herd immunity, and may help not to have severe form of the disease. We can speculate, but I don't think so. That can be proved. It's very difficult this time. It's because the main reason why I'm not considering this one is this is a new virus, it's a new strain, and we're not having coronavirus infections previously of the fatal types. The less fatal ones may have, if we go for antibody tests in the community, we may find some cases. But I cannot confidently say that works.
What you're saying that we have not yet developed that immunity to this virus, but there's been talk about that. You know that, right?
Exactly. The immunity is not, I don't think so, really the most important one, what determines. Rather, the virus is not able to multiply and spread. There is a new evidence that comes very recently. We know from other diseases as well. Sunlight has multiple advantage. It's not only increasing the humidity and making the environment warm, but also the vitamin D issue is now becoming highly vibrant. Vitamin D has an anti-inflammatory action, meaning it reduces the disease severity in many illnesses, many infectious and non-infectious diseases. And probably having a long time exposure to sunlight, at least at an adult age, is helpful to have a good vitamin D in our body, and that may reduce again the severity of the infection, but not necessarily transmission. The transmission is dependent on the viral shedding, meaning the virus able to multiply in human cells and shed and transmit to other persons. This is what is important. And the other thing is environment may have also a role in the incubation period. How long the virus can survive outside the human body. How long the virus can stay in human body while shedding, but not causing a disease.
The average is?
Exactly. In many
2 weeks.
Parts of the world, it is 2 weeks. But here in Ethiopia and some other African countries, we need to study. And the observation is that there are many cases who are coming after 3 weeks of having the virus. And this, after having a long time exposure. And this may tell you that the incubation period is also delayed in the African setting.
So have we have not yet undertaken massive testing. We've tried to do testing, right? Yes. Are we capable of doing massive testing?
I think let alone African countries, including Ethiopia, the developed countries are not able to go that much level of mass testing. When you say mass testing, reaching to the majority of the people. Technically, financially, I don't think that will be feasible. And even will it sound as well to make mass testing in a country where you have a positivity rate of around 0.6 to 0.7%? So far, I was following, and the turnout is extremely low. So will that really sound for a country with limited resources? Should it be practiced and should it be recommended? I'm doubtful.
Are you saying that there's nothing to worry about? This is nothing to worry about?
Well, we have to worry about it. It's because this is one of the fatal viral diseases. And we have to worry about, secondly, treatment is little, has a little support. What I mean is we don't have a definitive drug, or we don't have even the mechanical supportive therapies. So why should you lose even a single person?
And I know, but it's not on a scale that we feared it would be in Ethiopia. So why would you worry?
Terminologically, when you say pandemic is a disease that spread to many countries, here in Ethiopia, we're not having a single case. Now we have we at least tested and turned out to be positive, more than 260. So this is at epidemic rate here in Ethiopia. But we should not be that much worried about this disease because the scale of severity and mortality is not different from many other infectious diseases. There are many other infectious diseases that kills many people and can cause severe morbidity. And so it's not that much. That much frustrating as such. But
so what he's saying is our fears are unfounded. Is that what he's saying? Because it seems to be that everybody is alerted to this disease. Of course, nothing is happening at that level.
Yeah, that is right. But you are a human being, and you are witnessing what's happening in other parts of the world. And individual countries are reporting in thousands of new cases and reporting quite large number of bases. So it's scary when you see, and the mass media is talking about only COVID-19. You are hearing again and again about this disease. So as human being, being scared about this disease is natural and it's probably to take necessary precautions. I think it's alarming and it's for good, not as such.
We don't even have the first wave in your analysis, right?
Yes.
We don't have it, right?
We don't have that much large scale. We have so far few cases coming, and it's sporadic, I can say this.
So you don't see this picking up as the months?
We don't know. It may pick up later on, but not this time. We don't know about that one. But so far, it's not as such that much a public health problem. It's not yet community-based transmission. Almost all cases have some sort of travel or contact with people coming from abroad, and I can say almost all our cases so far reported are index cases, not coming from the community. It's not that much scale.
But do you think, given the circumstances that we find ourselves here, including from the leadership that is being provided from the Ministry of Health, where at some point you were at the helm of it, do you think that in case something goes wrong, as far as this COVID-19 is concerned, Ethiopia has all made the readiness to face any challenges? The
preparation is with available resources and capacity. I think that's exemplary, and for the similar outbreaks that we experienced before. If something happens wrong, meaning there is large cases coming, well, to what extent we can have the capacity to handle this number of cases, we'll see. We'll see when, I hope it will not be beyond our ability to manage cases, and will not be beyond that scale. But preparation so far made by the Ethiopian government, the ministry, and the regional governments is wonderful, and I think it needs to be appreciated.
So the post-COVID-19 scenario is going to be totally different, regardless of how we would be affected by this, right?
That's right. In my opinion, COVID-19 is a turning point in the history of mankind. The last 100 years, we don't have as such an outbreak in a short period of time that reaches to every corner of the world and mobilizes the people of the world. And I think after COVID, definitely individual countries and And the countries across the globe in general will have a different preparation to handle similar outbreaks. And it is somehow, again, I would say it's an opportunity for the countries to take disease, infectious disease in particular, infectious disease very seriously, and consider any infectious disease in any country as a potential risk to any part of the world. The Ethiopian government is probably stand in the coming year, what I surmise. It gives us an opportunity, by the way, to build our capacity, our local capacity. And before COVID, we're not having a viral test using a PCR machine beyond one in an institution. Even that was not, it was an EPHI. And we have the machines, but we're not using them. These machines are so important not only for clinical study, but also for research. Now we are able to test more than 2,600 in a day across the country. This is really a big jump for this country in terms of building a capacity, local capacity.
I mean, looking into the resources that we have, but we don't bother tapping into.
Exactly. So it clicks. I think to explore what capacity we have and what we need to have in the future as well. And this country, I hope, in the coming years, will be in a better position to handle outbreaks in terms of diagnosing the etiology and treating the disease and probably preventing the disease's spread and like what we call it containment and if it gets spread and how we can mitigate the disease and have less morbidity and less mortality. So this is I can say it's a blessing in disguise.
Let's talk a bit about the African Center for Disease Control, the African CDC. You were chairman of the board for a year and a half when you were actually the Minister of Health in this of this country. This is the second time, I guess, after Ebola, that the African CDC is about to grapple with as far as pandemics are concerned, right?
Well, we have established the African CDC in 2016, and it was officially launched in 2017 by the African head of states, and this is taking the experience of other countries like the American CDC, China CDC, Europe, and the like. The purpose of this African CDC is not only to take an action like outbreaks, Ebola outbreaks or some other outbreaks. It's a central continental coordinating office for
sharing of information.
Yes, for emergency outbreaks, or it's not only infectious, but also some other casualties, natural disasters and the like. Primarily, the focus is, yes, on infectious disease. Therefore, Ebola was something that really triggers probably for the establishment of the African CDC. And because it was the African governments and even other parts of the world, it was a serious concern. There are other diseases as well in the African continent, which are somehow worrying about the potential. They have the potential to spread to many countries, including outside Africa. So establishing a central or a continental level coordinating office was so important, and it's making also a good difference in.
We need CDC much more than we needed it in the past, particularly this time, right?
Yes.
We need that institution more today.
Exactly. Exactly. I think it's not only African CDC. It has 5 chapter offices. They call them regional coordinating office. That terminology probably may not be right. It's good to say zonal coordinating offices because a region, in our administrative structure, we call regions, and Africa as a continent is sometimes named as an African region. It may be somehow confusing. So the 5 zonal coordinating offices, the purpose is to have somehow an institution that can coordinate, alert, and guide how the emergency response, surveillance, and to be conducted and to be followed by the chapter offices. So African CDC this time may be more important than the previous one, definitely, because risks that the people in the African region and some other parts of the world is increasing. The risk of exposure to outbreaks and like the COVID-19, highly contagious diseases that can reach in many parts of the world in a short period of time. Therefore, having at a continental level, with which has a premise at the African Union, and which is an opportunity again for the African head of states to oversee the activities.
Particularly to this pandemic.
Particularly to this pandemic, to the COVID-19, the action that is undertaken by the countries and the continental level are by themselves are exemplary, and African CDC has played somehow a significant role in this context. Probably, yes, it may be complementary, but it's not as such, outshining specific to the COVID-19. Once it becomes an international disease outbreak, and everybody is engaged, starting from individual level to the national level, the involvement of the people and awareness and follow-up were probably far from the African CDC.
On that note, I guess we have to end the discussion. Thank you very much, Professor Yifru. It was really a pleasure having you on my show and talk about this virus.
My pleasure. Thank you.